record of a historic mission begins in the capital of the United Arab Republic. In 1860, the leaders of a nation, officials, military chiefs, and private citizens, to honor their president, Gamal Abdul Nasser, setting out on a journey of peace. The first glimpse of America is New York. Within a small section of land belongs to the world, and it stand the buildings of the United Nations. Representing the United Arab Republic, President Nasser is here to attend the unprecedented session of the United Nations General Assembly, an earth-shaking event that sees the great heads of state from around the globe gather to deal with the future. Riding in this official limousine, the leader of the Arab world is en route to a meeting with another of these powerful statesmen. To the outskirts of New York City they drive. With every movement, the distinguished delegates are followed and photographed. But here in the community of Glen Cove, the press is held back so an important conference can take place as President Nasser meets with Khrushchev of Russia. The cameras record only the entering and the leaving, but it is known that the man from the Middle East, the spokesman for the neutral nations, called upon Khrushchev to seek a reduction in tensions between the East and the Western nations. Back in New York City, the frenzied round of high-level diplomatic meetings continues day and night. President Nasser and United States President Eisenhower meet face-to-face for the first time. Before making these official pictures for newsreels and television, the great leaders discussed universal disarmament, problems in Algeria, in Palestine, across the earth. The Western president expressed immense pleasure in getting to know President Nasser personally and described their meeting as very cordial and frank. The Arab dignitary in his quest for world peace conferred back and forth on both sides of the ideological wall. The fiery Cuban Premier Fidel Castro joined forces with Nasser in the cause of neutralism, a united force that forms a third large power at the UN session. In all the conferences, the tall, handsome Arab with penetrating eyes and a comforting smile displayed a calm and congenial personality. At 900 Park Avenue, the UAR permanent delegation to the UN received one of the strongest supporters of the neutral camp with the arrival of India's Prime Minister Nehru. These outstanding representatives from Asia and Africa realized that their neutral nations might have the responsibility and the voting strength to reduce the mounting troubles between the East and the West. Next, President Nasser received Crown Prince Moulay Al Hassan, the Moroccan delegation to the United Nations. Once again on the diplomatic stage, there were formalities for the press preceding and following serious parleys backstage. Parleys that dealt in this case with Algerian disturbances. Marshal Tito of Yugoslavia also cast his views that nations taking no sides in the world political struggle. This argument was said to be the prime topic between the Republic President and the Arab leader, two men who understand and conduct business in countries regardless of politics. Between these two was mutual admiration. Were fighting generals. Both faced up to dominating powers and gained independence for their nations. Next, the UAR welcomed Sinan Rosides, Ambassador Plenipotentiary to the United States and Permanent Representative to the United Nations from Cyprus, recently another trouble area in the world. This is President Nasser's first visit to America. He had no chance to see much of it. With so many important heads of state in one place at one time, there was no opportunity for pleasure tours. Recently a visitor to Cairo, Cambodia's Prime Minister Sihanouk calls on President Nasser. While Nasser is the head of a nation of 30 million people, he is the recognized leader of 80 million in the Arab world. His conference with Sihanouk deals with the solidarity of Asia and Africa and ways of reducing world tension. A member nation of the Arab League is represented by this distinguished caller, Ahmed Shukari, Minister of State and head of the United Nations delegation from Saudi Arabia. The top-level conferences seem endless. Here in another historic meeting, UAR President Nasser welcomes the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Harold Macmillan, and his party. It was the first meeting between the two heads of state since 1955, when diplomatic relations between the two governments were severed following the Suez Canal dispute. Though the policies of nations can reach serious conflict, it is imperative that negotiations continue, and in this age of personal high-level diplomacy, two leaders of two important countries, such as England and the UAR, meet in a friendly atmosphere to strive for a common understanding between their peoples. Of the many world leaders attending the unforgettable 15th UN General Assembly session, few, if any, were more active than President Nasser. He visited nearly all of the leaders in both camps, though mainly his activities focused on meetings with representatives of the neutral nations. Once more in his campaign to remove the threat of global war, he accepted an invitation to confer with Marshal Tito of Yugoslavia. The privacy of the principals protected during the momentous proceedings. The record only shows them going to and from their conference rooms. But this was the picture across New York, the ceaseless comings and goings, as the famous men made the rounds from delegation to delegation. But the tireless effort was a small sacrifice, for this was the pursuit of peace. The actual proceedings of the United Nations are covered in other documentaries. This is only a picture album of a memorable journey. Toward the end of the visit, President Nasser heads for the outskirts of New York again to close his temporary residence in Sands Point, rented briefly for his stay. There, the Arab leader makes a personal appearance among the honor guard assigned to him. Counting the supreme heads of government as well as the rank and file of the security patrols, the president must have shaken more than 1,000 hands. But thanking his honor guard at Sands Point was to be done individually. With the diplomatic corps behind the scenes mapping out the busy itinerary, the president had to move fast to keep up. This he did in a grand fashion. But if he thought the excitement was over when he headed for his plane, he would find out differently when he arrived back home. From the air, Cairo appeared quiet. On the ground, heading the welcoming party was Marshal Amer, Vice President and head of the armed forces, there with high government executives. But there was excitement growing in the crowd as the president's plane arrived. The reception seemed particularly warm, as a fitting climax to an extraordinary journey. A military salute for President Nasser is an appropriate honor in view of his own background. His youth spent in a military college, he later attained the rank of colonel in the army, led the revolt against King Farouk in July 1952, gaining independence for Egypt, became a general, the prime minister, then president of Egypt, and when Syria joined his country, the head of the United Arab Republic. After the review, the cheering began rising to a resounding roar, with shouts hailing the hero of the revolution, the destroyer of colonialism. The crowds becoming frenzied with excitement, unrestrained in their admiration of the returning chief of state. In their eagerness to see the president, the scene almost resembled a mob. This memory, too, would be added to the mission. It was a wild celebration, a people's way of approving their leader's actions in New York, for his impressive representation of Arabs everywhere, for his moving speech on peace before the United Nations, for his success with Eisenhower, Khrushchev, Nehru, Tito, Macmillan, Castro, Nkrumah, Hammarskjöld, and the other great statesmen of the world. For these efforts and for his leadership, the people strained their lungs. Parts of Egypt, Syria, Yemen, and the rest of the Arab world, the congratulations come. Here are trade unions, student leagues, National Assemblymen, all to pay tribute to Gamal Abdel Nasser for his results in America. He helped reinforce the neutral nations, creating a third strong power in politics. Through personal persuasion with presidents and prime ministers, he gained greater understanding for his people and many of the world's troubled spots in Palestine, Algeria, Morocco, throughout the Arab world and the Middle East, crusading for disarmament, for the United Nations, for peace between the East and the West. All this would echo forever in his remembrance of a historic journey in 1960.